A few announcements. If you'll keep a few people in your prayers, Anna cannot be here today. She had an incident and cannot drive, and she had some type of infection in her stomach. So, also, Jerry Petty, his grandson had undergone surgery, and so he was not here. The surgery was last week, and they're in a different state. The family where the grandson lives. So please keep him, in your prayers. And as you can see, our secretary is back full time now, and he's gotten better. He's driving now, so I am no longer his chauffeur for the past 5 weeks. But he is getting better. He's now taking physical therapy to get both his legs stronger. So walking on uneven ground still is kind of shaky and steps. So here are the announcements I think you all need to know. Next week, the 5th of August, our speaker will be Nicole Green. And 2 years ago, we gave her a scholarship to attend the Paul Mitchell Cosmetologist, and she has graduated. And the breakfast will be brought by Inga next week. And then on the 12th, our speaker will be Renee Reedy. She's with the Gary County Extension Office. She'll be speaking about wills and trusts. I think it's going to be interesting. On the 17th of August, it's our fundraiser at J.C. Barbecue Bar and Grill. And then on the 19th, we have our board meeting. And then the last Wednesday of August, the 26th, the principal of the J.C. Middle School will be our speaker, Ms. Gibson. Okay. And our speaker this morning is Sam.
Hello, nice to be here.
And she is the vice mayor. So it's on you.
Glad to be here. So I am the vice mayor of Junction City. I'm also one of our 5 city commissioners that we have at this time. I am newly elected as of this year. I was sworn in January 6th. So it's been 7 almost 8 months now. Time flies when you're having fun. So I'll start off with a little bit about how I got to this point, being newly elected. So I've been in Kansas my whole adult life. Got here when I was 18. Been here ever since. I loved it so much. Lived on Fort Riley, Ogden, Manhattan, and then came to Junction City. Everyone warned me not to come to Junction City, and then I got here and I was like, this is the best place I've lived so far, and bought my first house here. So I've been in JC ever since. I work in a corporate setting. I work in project management specifically. So I already had kind of an established skill set of coming into things I may not necessarily understanding how they work, what they need, working on processes, and how to keep things moving. And it was ultimately that skill set that I was hoping to bring into a city commission position. I feel that someone who advises on process and decides for choices and how we should or should not proceed things, there's a decent overlap in those project management skills. And so early last year, I think it was about February of 2025, I threw my hat in the ring and started running for office. I was lucky that I got in early because I had no idea what I was doing, and it gave me about a year to figure it out. So that's what I did all last year. I campaigned like crazy, but for me, a lot of campaigning was just learning, going out meeting with city officials, county officials, state officials, nonprofits, anyone who's willing to talk to me. Honestly, I was there emailing and knocking on the door and asking to understand what they do and what they like or what they don't like. And of course, business owners, veterans, general citizens, just to get a feel for what life looks like for them. Because I'd be bold to assume that my great ideas would be great for other people. And so I got through the primary election and then the general election and was sworn in January. So here we are today. I'll tell you a little bit about what the day-to-day of a vice mayor or city commissioner looks like at this point. So The most visible part of our job is the meetings that we have twice a month. On the first and third Tuesday of every month, we meet at 7 p.m. in the municipal court building, which is the smaller building across from the big municipal building. We do also live stream our meetings on Facebook, YouTube, and Boxcast. So if you can't see it in person, we still want you to have visibility on what we're discussing and how it may go. Now, these meetings are the most visible part of our job, but I will tell you, it is so much more than just twice a month meetings. One of the first things they did, for example, once they swore us in, is they placed us on boards. I sit on 2 boards on behalf of the city. I'm on the Adibus board for Junction City, and I'm also on the MPO board, which is our local Metropolitan planning organization. They work on KDOT projects, with highway projects, infrastructure projects, sidewalks. They do a lot of infrastructure for the Flint Hills region, because if you can get multiple towns together, it tends to be a little easier to align and, well, get funding. So those are the boards I sit on behalf of the city. So for some boards, it's once a month. For some boards, it's quarterly. We come together, we look at the projects, the upcoming needs, and make choices accordingly. Those are the more public facing actions, but a lot of our job is behind the scenes. Within a week, I would say between text messages, calls, social media messages, and emails, I have anywhere from 5 to 30 citizens contact me. It's been a busier week. This last week, for example, I've had about 12 citizens contact me, and I think today's Wednesday.
Mhm.
So I'm sure by the end of this week, I'll be on that later end. A lot of citizens will work with city commissioners for a multitude of reasons. Perhaps they feel their local road isn't getting the attention they need. Perhaps they have concerns about their water, sewer, trash bill, or their access to their utilities, or maybe they have questions about navigating the codes and permitting process. It is a wide array of knowledge, and I will tell you, there's more often than not times where I will tell a citizen, you know what, I don't know the answer to that, but I know that my staff does, and I work as a liaison to guide them through that process of getting the information that they need. Ultimately, my number one goal as a city commissioner has been engagement of information. I think a lot of citizens, the core of their heartache is just knowing what's going on and having information for projects or initiatives for funding so they feel more informed. There's a lot of things that even myself as a city commissioner cannot change, but I can at least help you know exactly what's going on and how you can participate. And so outside of that engagement and the information, there are a couple things when I campaigned that I called out and said, you know what, I would like to change these things. And so one of the things we're working on right now is a funding process. If you don't know, for the county, the city, and Board of Education, it is budget season for next year, which is a fun time. Lots of extra meetings looking through projected forecasts for expenses and assets and funding, and finding a way to not raise tax dollars in the meantime. And so something I had noticed a lot in last year's city commission meetings when I was campaigning was when a person or a program or an organization would come to the city and ask for funding, there was no process to guide them in how to request that funding. And on the other side of that coin, there was no process to guide city commissioners in determining consistently if they should provide that funding. And so I've been working with our financial director and our city manager to develop a funding process. So if you, as a nonprofit or local organization or business, wish to come to the city and request taxpayer funds, the ideal point will be that you will fill out a packet requiring certain information. You will come and speak to the city commission and present this consistent information. And then the city commission will be provided certain data points to determine consistently, should we provide you this money? And then I'll take it a step further. Should we choose to issue these funds, we will have the expectation that you return, be it on a quarterly, biannual, or yearly basis, to say, this is what I did with that money. Otherwise, we may never fund you again. And so we are working very closely to develop this process. Budget season is a great time to develop it because we have live examples of how people are coming to ask for the money, what they're asking for, and what information they are or are not choosing to disclose in the qualification of that funding. So that's been a big pursuit for me this year. I'm very hopeful that by the end of this year, we will have a great process in place so that come next year, if anyone comes and asks for funding, we can say, good news, here's your packet, fill that out, and we'll put you through the process. And of course, we may adjust over time. Yes, sir. Looks like you had a question. No, just excited? Not yet. Okay. So working through that, of course, people can also go to the county or the Convention and Visitors Bureau through the county for funding. So I have been making contact with them to figure out who should they go to for, who's on first, essentially. Should they go to the county first? Should they go to the CBB? Should they go to the city? So different points coming into this funding process. Outside of our boards and our funding process and engaging information, it's really just about getting out with the people. We have about 23,000 citizens, a wide variety of populations, and very transient, come and go. So you have to be able to meet with lots of different people here. What's their life look like? What is the city doing or not doing? Just getting out to events and being willing to hear what people have to say and showing them that. There's some citizens who are hesitant to talk to local officials because they're like, why? What's the point? Well, my hope is to show them that if they're willing to talk to me, maybe I can get it that much further, or get them information, or get them resources. Do something to engage them and support them, however I'm empowered to do so. Even if that means referring them up to the county, or even referring them up to a state representative or official. I may not always be the person who has the power, but again, I can at least be the conduit to that conversation. And so those are a lot of the things that we navigate. Ultimately, no matter who you are as a city commissioner, our scope is budget, it's ordinances, it's public safety. We are meant to really advise on many of these topics and be the last gate that they pass through before going outwards. We have 5 city commissioners. I'm the vice mayor, and Madam Terry Butler is our mayor. Now, the unique thing about our hierarchy is that every 2 years, you will vote and select 3 city commissioners. The first 2 city commissioners will get a 4-year term, and the third city commissioner gets a 2-year term. So we have a nice staggered rotation that allows for the sharing of tenure and wisdom, but also potentially fresh perspectives. Now, every year, whether or not there's been an election, the commission will determine the mayor and the vice mayor for that year. So in the same meeting where I was sworn in as a city commissioner is when we determined the mayor and vice mayor for this calendar year. Now, some of the reasons we do that is the mayor and the vice mayor, they have a bit more scope and a bit more power, but not that much. The votes all hold the same power, whether you're a city commissioner or a mayor, your vote is 1/5 through and through. However, the mayor is responsible for conducting the meeting. They open the meeting, they control the floor, they conduct the meetings. And of course, the vice mayor, myself, will maintain that responsibility if Madam Terry Butler cannot perform those duties. And we are asked to represent the city. We will come and provide speeches, attend speaking engagements, and just get out there, represent the city, and talk to people about the city. So that is kind of the current state of our hierarchy. We have a single city manager, Mr. Kim Zimmerman. He reports to all 5 of the city commissioners and operates on our behalf. We are not empowered to go in and make many changes, but we work with him and the other staff to, again, be the conduit for these perspectives and these changes. And of course, Mr. Zimmerman, then all of the city reports up to him. He's a bottleneck in that way. And so that is a little bit about what our general scope and our hierarchy looks like. At this time, do you have any questions about what we do? Our experience? Yes, sir.
with all the funding cuts and stuff that are going on,
Mhm.
how secure is Adipose?
So Adibus is facing some pain points at this time. They did have their funding reduced by the county and by the Board of Education. And so they have came to Junction City to ask for more funding to help supplement that. I expect that we may fulfill some of the funding, but I don't know if we'll fulfill all of it. There's still some conversations about that. But what I will say is within the board, we've been having conversations about working with our community, working with other municipalities more. For example, Adibus does have some stops in Grandview. Working with Grandview, pulling a chair up to the table for them in those discussions. Grant money is certainly the name of the game as well, although that does often require a match. So finding ways to diversify it instead of relying so much on that taxpayer dollar, that's what we're seeing with the Adibus, especially looking into next year for the budget season. Any other questions?
Sam, you said when you campaigned, one of your goals was to work on the funding process, which you laid out. Were there other things that you hoped that you could accomplish?
Yes, certainly. I came in with an open mind because I knew today wouldn't be tomorrow, but there were a couple pet projects, so to speak. One of the more controversial topics has been the legalization of chickens. Citizens asked for it about 5 times. They've always been told no. And even though I am someone pursuing the legalization of chickens, I do talk to the citizens who say no chickens. I've talked to many of them, and I understand their perspective, their points of concern. And that's why, earlier this year, I didn't just come in and say, legalize it. I've tried to open the floor and make it a working conversation of what could we do to make this actually successful. I'm not asking for a full flock, so to speak, but I think if we sat down and had a good conversation, we could support people having 3, 4 chickens in the backyard. Do I believe that egg prices are the reason to have chickens? No. As someone who grew up raising chickens, by the time you buy the coop and you buy the chickens and then you raise them for 6 months before they even start laying, you all that money's gone out the window. But I do think it is a great investment in our families and our children, especially. Shoveling chicken manure definitely developed a lot of character for me as a child. And then, of course, a sense of self-sustainment. When people feel that they can take care of themselves without relying on others, it's a very unique sensation. Now, I have been unsuccessful in getting the city commission to form a consensus to legalize it through that route. But unfortunately for them, I am caffeinated and tenacious. And so I have began pursuing a petition for a proposed ordinance. I put together criteria with my personal legal counsel as a citizen. We're developing a proposed a proposed ordinance. The ordinance will pass through the county staff. The county staff will present it to the city commission, give them the opportunity to adopt it. Otherwise, it goes to the ballot for the general election this year, which I like because it gives the people the power to participate in this choice. That is one of the reasons I ultimately pursued this, is I want to show people you have the power as a citizen to petition and influence changes. If you feel that the city commission is not hearing your needs, you still have options to empower people to make a choice. And so, of course, for the people who don't support chickens, I encourage them to vote no. I won't tell them not to vote. I'm tickled anytime people vote, period. Please show up to the polls. It's worth noting we do have a primary election at this time. Anyone, no matter party, should participate, and of course should participate in the general election as well. So legalization of chickens was another topic as well.
In the early days of our city, the chickens and horses and cars all got along on Washington Street.
Mm-hmm. I believe it. I have an old, my house was built in like 1909, so I think it's 115 or 16 years old, and my garage is actually an old horse barn. You can see the rails where the door used to slide to let the horse carriage out. Yeah, so I would certainly believe it. I certainly would. Maybe someday we could do, well, maybe not horses. I won't ask for a lot. I think a couple hens would be just fine.
Mhm.
But yes, just representing the people. Yes, sir.
What do you think can be done or is being done to give Junction City a better image? Because, you know, I'm so tired of hearing how bad Junction City is.
Absolutely. There's a couple things we can do. The first thing is we can give people a reason to feel that way. When I talk to people who lived here in earlier decades or have been here for a while, they may not always have the best perspective on Junction City, and I don't blame them for that. When you see things where you feel you've experienced a pattern, you have the right to feel disgruntled. And those are the opportunities to rebuild trust through action. Essentially, make it so. I will never ask people to believe in me without giving them a receipt of why they should, without showing them, hey, we did this. We're getting this done. Give us a chance. I think action is louder than words in many ways, and I won't ask people to stop having a perspective that's rooted in a potentially very valid experience. However, outside of simply making things better, there are ways to engage the citizens. It's one of the reasons that information and engagement was so meaningful to me in my campaign and thus in my position. A lot of citizen heartache just comes from not knowing. They don't know that good things are happening. They don't know we have projects in the works. And so if I didn't know about all these good things, I think I'd be a little disappointed too. So we're working a lot harder to put information out about upcoming projects, about changes, opening the floor so citizens can play a role in these changes and feel like they have the ability to make it better than what they believe it to be now.
How would a person that lives in Junction City be informed about what's going on in the city? We don't really have a newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
Our radio stations are pretty much a thing of the past.
Yeah.
So how can people communicate with, our city commission?
Absolutely. So we do live in a technical age now, much like you pointed out. People, I mean, I buy my newspaper subscription, but many people they don't read the newspaper anymore. A lot of people, they have streaming services, they don't listen to the radio anymore. And so we have to be diverse but intentional in how we put out information. Um, Social media, we have really started to increase our social media game on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, to help engage the younger generations. The matter of it is children born after 9/11 can vote now, which is crazy and humbling to think about at times. And so finding ways to engage them before we lose them, but then also how do we engage our older populations who are used to these avenues? It's really about diversifying. We do have a public information officer now. She has upped our social media game a lot. We receive thousands of views, which is encouraging because we get it in front of people more. Something I also do myself is the Next Door neighborhood app. I have found that a lot of people who don't use social media still use a neighborhood app to keep a pulse on, hey, what's happening in my area? Does anyone know why this is going on? And so when I remember to, I try to grab everything that we're sharing and put it on that app too. So even if you're not on Facebook, you're not on Instagram or any other social media, if you're on a neighborhood app, it's still being put out in front of you to the best of our abilities. As far as contacting our city staff, we do have city issued emails. Email, I always encourage because since our email is hosted in the city system, it's accountable, it's transparent. There's no way for us to have a secret conversation or exclude certain information. So we do have Junction City emails. There's a directory on the Junction City website where you can find anybody's phone number or email and contact them accordingly.
And funding wise, with all the cuts and stuff that are going on, what do you think are two of the biggest challenges facing Junction City in the future?
Through the lens of funding. I hate to say this too loudly and jinx us, but Junction City is turning a corner financially at this time. A lot of the debt that we incurred over the last couple decades is sunsetting in the next 2 to 4 years, which is very exciting. We also did recently hire a grant writer. He gave a presentation at our most recent city meeting. He updates us every quarter on the millions of dollars in grant money we're receiving. Now that we have a grant writer and can receive grant monies, although that itself is certainly a process, that alleviates a lot of our funding burdens, which is exciting. I could see one of our biggest pain points as time progresses being good old inflation. Even if you diversify your funding, things simply continue to cost more. And that's a point where we have to have a large scale plan, take a step back and say, is this a must have, a should have, a could have, or won't have? Similar exercise we use in project management a lot. You may come to me with your hopes and dreams, and I'm going to go, okay, what do we actually have to do to get this rolling and to make it happen without risks? Same thing with that, having a capital improvement plan that determines our assets, our future needs, and allows us to plan and forecast, potentially helps save a lot of heartbreak, which is something our staff is working on now. Our community development director, Mr. Chris Strackengas, he's working on a new CIP, capital improvement plan. That way we can determine the current state of our assets, the future state of our assets, the current state of our infrastructure, the future state of our infrastructure. That way we know what to expect within reason. Hey, life happens fast. We've all seen it. But within reason, we know what to expect and can start to plan accordingly. And of course, we do have reserves in case the worst, an act of God, should happen. We have reserves in place. So if something horrific should happen, we can continue to operate.
What's the city planning on doing with the mill levy, holding it flat?
So there's two pieces to that, the mill levy and the R&R. We did make a motion to be at or below R&R. The mill levy actually fluctuates based on the appraisals of property. So we can't control what a mill is worth. That comes from the county, but we can plan to be at R&R, which is the revenue neutral rate, which is essentially breaking even. Now, worth noting, property values on average went up about 6% this year. So if we are exactly at R&R, we will still see approximately a 6% increase in taxes from the city's share. So ideally, we get a little bit below that R&R to truly break even. But I did make a motion that we should plan to be at or below R&R. The motion did pass. And through that, the staff did notify the county. So we have to do that now, or else my legal team will come back and be very upset with me. So that is it. Although I will note for the taxes, it is also city, but also county, and also Board of Education. What we've seen in previous years is the city may be at or below, but then perhaps Board of Education is above, perhaps county is above. So it will still potentially go up through influence of those other entities. But I made that motion and I'm working diligently with my staff to get at least at, preferably a little bit below. I mentioned earlier, a bunch of our debt is preparing to sunset. Ideally, what we do is we maintain where we're at, we shed that debt, and then we can start looking at, okay, how do we start moving forward? Once that debt sunsets, we will be in an even better place financially. That will alleviate a good portion of those pain points. I hope that made sense.
Sam, what courses in high school prepared you for public speaking and then this public office?
School of Hard Knocks, I fear. I'll be very honest. When I went to high school, I was kind of a loser. I was a marching band kid. I didn't have a lot of friends. I was poor. In fact, in February of my 8th grade year, I was bullied so much that I switched to online school. Now moving to online school afforded me a lot of extra opportunities. I took entrepreneur classes, for example. I did take personal finance classes as well. And once I got out of high school, I mean, I'd been in the workforce since I was 14 or 16. So the real world shaped me often and early. Operating in an online school meant I could work more hours. I could do more things. At one point, I held 3 part-time jobs. I was just trying to make my money as much as I could. So real life shaped me a lot in that way. I worked in construction. I worked at home centers, ice cream shops, secondhand stores for clothing. So you encounter a lot of people in that way, good, bad, or otherwise, and it teaches you how to talk to people. My mom was a township supervisor in our little town too, which is like a city commissioner. And I remember being 8 years old in the back fidgeting and watching the discourse happen. And so I was exposed to public forums early on in that way. But online school helped a little bit with entrepreneurial classes. And then when I got my associate's degree, actually at Barton on Post, I took business finance, I took personal finance again, more business classes, and a lot of psychology classes, actually. I think psychology and business have a much bigger overlap than we forget about at times. And of course, I did take a public speaking class as well. It all comes together nicely, but real world will try you outside of those classes. You can study and write speeches all day long, but until you've gone through the experience of having a citizen come up to you and speak to you in a certain manner and knowing how to navigate that, you just have to wait for that to happen and get through it, truly.
Were you active duty?
I was not. I got here because I was actually married to my high school sweetheart who was stationed at Fort Riley. Yep, so I loved it so much that I stayed here. You know, it's a lot cheaper to live here. There's, believe it or not, compared to where I'm from, there's a lot less crime in this area, so much less crime. It's so nice here. People look at me crazy when I say that, but man, if you knew where I came from, Kansas is really not that bad, y'all. I'm quite happy here.
Do you know the phrase from Pogo cartoon strip? You've met the end. It's us.
Oh, I have not, but I just might steal that from you. That is a very valid phrase. Often we are our first enemy. We have to get through ourselves before we can even try to get through others. In that same way, we often are the first people who will block or censor ourselves before we give other people the opportunity to. I recently read a book about self-censorship, and it talks so much about how we will hesitate to speak about ourselves or others or certain topics because of how we believe it may be received without giving ourselves the opportunity to disappoint those people, essentially. That's a great point.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And before we close, we have a raffle.